Released in September of 2022, Cyberpunk Edgerunners breathed new life into a game that had, at best, if you're being generous, a troublesome launch. Bringing attention back to a game that, while popular enough in its own right, would be skyrocketed into the public view once more, this time for a far more positive reason. Published by Netflix in collaboration with Studio Trigger and CD Projekt Red, we followed the story of one David Martinez and his little flash in the pan in Night City. The show would go on to win the 2023 Anime of the Year award, along with countless others, continuing to endear Cyberpunk and its brand to the general public. But as a result of these monumental successes, the foundation of the series is, while being discovered here and there, slowly being forgotten. Lore that is slowly fading into memory, and then even further into myth. If you want a better idea of a fine example of that, go check out my video on the biggest lie of Johnny Silverhand. It's a rather strange one if you take a look at it. And while I have little experience with the progenitor of Cyberpunk, that being Cyberpunk 2013, I was introduced to this series through the second edition of the game, Cyberpunk 2020. And, like the inspiration of this video, both Game Master's Guide and a very recent Quinn the GM livestream about Victorian Greyjoy, let's create some of these characters in TTRPG form with as closely as I can resemble. And in this case, we're lucky enough for there to be an exact system that is being created more or less alongside this, being Cyberpunk Red. Unfortunately for me, I'm not the biggest fan of Cyberpunk Red. So let's go back one generation and, you know what, let's make that 2 generations. We're going back 2 tabletop generations to Cyberpunk 2020. So, some quick background for this. I'm working on a video series going over how to create a character in 2020. Similar to Seth Gorkowski's Call of Cthulhu series, so I'll be a little light on exact details for how to fully create a character, and with those finer details, you'll get them in the video as soon as I get that out, hopefully next month, just looking at how my schedule is going. But with this, you'll get broad strokes. Again, finer details will be in that video, so stay tuned with that. For the source of all of this information, I have kindly borrowed books because within the series for main splat books, there are a total of 29 main source books to go through. Everything from A Guide to Night City all the way to Deep Space and even Bart Moss's Guide to the Net. Shockingly, not all of these are going to be exceptionally useful. I could pull up Maximum Metal and make the Cyber Skeleton. I'm not comfortable enough with the ACPA rules, so we're going to leave that to next time. But with all the sources, I have almost all of them here in person. First up, we have the base Cyberpunk rulebook. Again, I'm borrowing this from a friend. Thank you, Scotch, for letting me borrow these. This is going to have everything we need for character creation and some base Chrome. After that, we have the Chrome books. These give you additional lore, as well as everything from Chrome to fashion to vehicles, anything you could ever want here. This is Chromebooks 1 and 2, and then Chromebooks 3 and 4. Again, borrowing these from a friend, but they are available on DriveThruRPG. I'm not sure if the Art House Orient store has restocked them. They've been pretty flaky with those. But beyond those books, I am also using Interface Magazine, Volume 1, Issue 1, for a single thing that I think fleshes out a bit more of the build, and David isn't anything without his Sandevston, so I decided to port that directly from Cyberpunk Red, specifically found in the Edgerunners mission kit. Again, single item. I don't normally want to port items back, but considering how integral the Sandevston is to David as a character, I'm going to do that just to make it work better. So, we'll burn that bridge when we get to it, way down here at the end of the line. And when I reference an item from a particular book, I'm going to show it on screen, off to the side, as just a simple way of citing my sources. So, with all that out of the way, let's take a look and figure out what David's stats and character actually looks like. Like most TTRPGs, Cyberpunk 2020 uses stats. All of these are fairly self-explanatory on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being absolutely awful, 10 being peak of humanity, and 5 being your average citizen, you know, just some average Joe on the street. He's probably got like a maybe 5 in terms of looks. You know, some people are going to have like a bit lower, a bit higher, but all in all, it's going to roughly average out. With the exception of one of these stats, all of them are fairly self-explanatory, and for that major one, we will be touching on it a bit more, especially since it is David's specialty, which makes him unique and built different. So, another major thing that we need to look at with 2020, this is not like D&D. There are not major classes that determine your entire abilities. Instead, it's a skill-based system. There's everything from anthropology to lockpicking to flying a dirigible, and all of those will change your character. For example, at the table I'm playing at, we have 3 solos, and each solo could not play more differently. More or less, we've all divided them into different varieties of stealth. We have quiet stealth with Raiden. He's very stealthy and, ninja, quiet man. Next, we have a gentleman named Scorch. He is burnt ground stealth. He will destroy entire buildings. He's our demolitions expert, and he also uses way too many explosives. He's doing very good at that. And then we have Kamchatka, loud stealth. He will bust in, kill everyone, and then get out. Can't be alerted if no one's there to survive it, right? But with that, all of them are solos. And due to the way that their skills are statted, they play completely differently. Even if the joke is we all are doing stealth ops, just due to the planning of the fixer and techie, which just happens to be me. So, while all these are vastly different, we will be touching on stats and skills as we need going through them. So, each skill goes into a respective stat. Let's get a good example of this as we move into something like our special skills. For Fixer, this is David during his years in the academy. This is gained through him selling BDs around campus and having contacts to continue to sell them and have a consistent flow, specifically of the Jimmy Kurosawa stock. And all in all, as per the book description, at +3, you get contacts for weapons, tools, and minor operations, specifically of the criminal variety. And while I would say David isn't there just yet, he's well on his way, giving him a +2 in that stat. Now we get into the real meat and potatoes. His main skill, which he develops across the entire series. Solo. This is Combat Sense. Solo at +6. Combat Sense, the respective name of the skill for Solo. This adds to your Aware Notice skill and Initiative, more often than not letting you go first and notice things that most people won't. And given his skill as a minor solo in the area, I do feel that he falls perfectly into just above average category for a competent solo. He is able to get to the gigs, get them done. All in all, he is doing a good job for himself and his crew. So while there are no concrete examples for what a +6 solo looks like in the book that I can immediately find, that's about where we're going to put him, as it boosts all other skills in the area that he might need, but the actual numbers might be lacking in. Next up, we have Intelligence. This is what it sounds like. This is how well you know to use your head, which, as mentioned a few times in the series, he's actually very intelligent, having high enough grades, enough that, Arasaka is able to plausibly offer him a scholarship as a means to come back. Of course, this scholarship is a booby trap, but, he doesn't know that. Financial aid is sometimes well worth it if you're going to climb the corporate ladder. Within these areas, as he is a bit above average, he is not a genius, but he is fairly intelligent. I'm going to give him a 7. Now for the skills within this area. We have Aware Notice. He is getting a +2. While it may not look like much compared to all his other roles, since he has Combat Sense, he's going to get a +15 to each of his roles, the math of which will be on screen here, and this will be enough for him to just casually beat average difficulty things, which I think he is more than able to do. However, he is not particularly aware with how things are, and as such, he is placed at +2. Education and general knowledge. This one's at a +2 and is easy enough to explain. Quoting directly from the book, +2 is the equal to a high school education. Can't get much more clear cut than that. He's got a high school education, he's top of his class, congratulations, you get a +2. And finally, language skills. English and maybe some Spanish. Again, I put him at 4, just giving him a bit of a leg up in terms of Spanish. This is... the exact wording will be on screen for what that will roughly equate to, but I don't really have a way to judge these beyond the fact that he is of Hispanic heritage. His mother keeps throwing Spanish words into the sentences when she's speaking to him. I can't really say too much about that, so yeah. Have some languages, I had some points to spend. Next up, reflexes. This again is self-explanatory. To use the fruit salad analogy, this is how well you can dodge or attack a tomato. This includes everything from martial arts to flying a zeppelin, and of course, the source of most of David's skills. This gives a very quick thing, along with his personality being a bit more high-strung, even without his speed, where this is going to be his second highest stat, sliding in right at 8. The skills found here are brawling, and unlike most trained martial arts, this is something you pick up along the way, alongside the road, given his willingness to go bare-knuckle box a fellow in the courtyard, as well as just knock him senseless inside of the classroom. So, odds are he's been in a few scraps in his time, not exceptionally skilled, but odds are he can swing his way out of a decent fight, +2. Dodge and escape. At a +2, you add this to your defense roll in certain situations. When paired with the speedware he gets later on, I'm going to house rule a little bit and say that he can definitely use those to get additional bonuses for dodging strikes, maybe bullets. Bullet dodging is something I have a bit of issue with in Cyberpunk Red, but I'm not talking about Cyberpunk Red here, am I? Again, this gives a chance for incoming strikes to miss along with bullets. This works out well for him at a +10 total. At a +2 of driving, this is the first skill we see David gain during the downtime segment when he joins the crew and when he gets to a major part of the gang. Driving is self-explanatory. This is you driving along and being able to do it properly under pressure. Starting out at 0, you might see that it's marked red. That means that he got these skills post-Arasaka Academy. They might have existed beforehand, but they have been boosted majorly due to the events that happened afterwards. Again, we see it in the cutscene and general montage. Handguns at +5. Stated to be on the level of most police officers, this is a skill that we see him train up, learning his way around the firearm, as well as what's included in the next skill during the in-between period when he learns to be a proper edge runner. Rifles at +3. This is used for rifles and shotguns. Heavy weapons are a different skill all on their own. Those are more of the heavy hitters. He doesn't get any of those. This is a little lower than his pistol skill, and that's just because he seems to prefer using pistols in most situations. And now for stealth. Being at +2, we see him sneak into the office later on in the series, and again, I am making an executive decision here and saying this is going to be heavily augmented by his speedware, as well as odds are he's a teenager, he's probably going to be sneaking out, selling XBDs, climbing through vents to enter his foreclosed house. Again, skilled enough for a kid, but nothing too special out in the field. Now, onto tech. This is your knowledge about how to fix, break, or just generally rearrange technology. He seems to be no more knowledgeable about it than your average kid, with a slight exception being Chrome. You could argue that his ability to find out what the Sandevistan is might be related to maybe library search, but I firmly believe that it is because of his ability to read Chrome and like the operating files that you would find in it. So, again, this is partially due to me needing to put points somewhere. He gets a 5, he's about average. For his skills, at basic tech, we have +2. This is building and repairing basic mechanical things, electricals, TVs, washing machines, vents, the basics. We see him be able to do it from time to time, but he's not specialized. Cybertech. Coming in at +4, we see him able to service his own gear to some extent, identify a black market piece of chrome, and in coordination with his contacts and maybe a luck roll to boot, odds are he picked up a bit more of this from Maine during the time lapse, but I would probably say he starts out at like a 3. He didn't have much to learn. And now, pickpocket. You might be asking, why is that in technical skill? I don't fucking know. Go ask Pondsmith. He occasionally shows up on Reddit. But at +2, one of the few things I agree with on Red is the changing of pickpocket to reflexes. I can hear the arguments for it being in technical skill and ability, but again, a bit of a GM ruling here. His speedwear absolutely boosted this ability, and helping in the matter, giving him far better odds. The skill isn't too high because his skills were lacking nuance, but he clearly knew enough how to get the chips to Lucy and snag the key out of the gentleman's pocket. Cool. This is yet another skill. This is how you handle yourself. If I'm going to come up with a tomato analogy on the spot, this is how well you can sell somebody a tomato in a fruit salad. This is your ability to handle stress, which, while David doesn't seem to be too great at considering how everything went, we also have to keep in mind his circumstances were extreme. No average person is going to have to deal with all of those within the course of a week, most likely. But I do believe he is just above average, considering how well he was able to handle being flayed open without anesthesia, scoring him a 6. Little above average, but nothing too special. For the skills, we have resist, torture, and drugs. This is the first skill we have that is boosted by Chrome. We'll touch on that when we get to it later, but this again, I think we can obviously say it was used during his little stint getting the Sandy put in, again, being flayed open without anesthesia. He seems to like not having anesthesia now that I think about it, including almost every time we see him get something in his back. So, this, again, most likely used during his Chrome up, and I guarantee that at the table, that was seen as a really badass moment. The other moment that we see him use it is during his Cyber Psycho trip with the BD artist in the episode with Kurosawa. At Streetwise, we have +3. We can clearly see that he knows his way around the local area, along with where to find XBDs, selling those, pairing quite well with his limited fixer skill. Again, it's not too high, but it's high enough that he's able to get everything done. For attractiveness, this is what it sounds like. This is how well you dress and take care of yourself. Again, David seems to be about average in this, nothing standing up, but nothing too interesting, though it is lowered a bit due to a piece of chrome he gets later down the line. The original score is 6, lowered down to 5. For skills, I'm just giving him +2 in wardrobe and style. He has a clear style and, way that he dresses, specifically being shirts, sweatpants, old jacket. But, it's nothing too fancy, and it is worth noting, again, I had some skill points to throw around. May as well do wardrobe and style. Now, we move on to one of the more difficult skills to explain, luck. This doesn't have any actual skills in it, but it's something that influences the background. It either helps or hinders you depending on how it goes. You can spend luck points to adjust rolls beforehand. For example, if you're rolling for something and you need to make it work, you can spend as many luck points as you need to add to that roll. It's helped out a lot for us at the table. But given David has the curse of being the main character in Night City, this is going to start really fucking low at 2. Now we go on to a few things that are a bit more physical in nature. Movement allowance. This is how quick you are, calculating both run and leap over a single round, being 3.2 seconds. A turn in Cyberpunk is 3 rounds, so 10 seconds. For run, you multiply this number by 3, and for leap, you divide it by 4. As seen, it's adjusted by cyberware, but nothing too special. He's a bit quick, and again, having the Sandy would boost that a fair amount. Body. This is your carry and lift. How strong you are, how bulky, how muscular. Starting out, he is a little bit on the weaker side, being roughly like a beanpole. And after all, we see him work on it a fair amount. But, and again, this is what we see going through the line. Original score is going to be 4. It's boosted to an 8 with his continuous working through the time skip. There are no larger skills here, but one thing that is noted with some of the chrome he gets, specifically muscle weave and the linear frame, those numbers are boosted to high hell with his carry and lift. The exact math for how to calculate those will be on screen. Now we're on to David's big skill. Empathy. This is generally what makes David special. This is how well you handle people and your grasp on humanity, yourself, others, how you read them, stuff of that nature. He has this skill maxed out at 10. This is the highest you can go, giving him 100 humanity points to work with. He's gonna need those sure as hell, because each amount of chrome takes a certain amount of humanity points away from you. Once you get into low, I'm talking like teens, single digits, you start experiencing some side effects of borderline cyberpsychosis. Nothing too severe, but it's noticeable that you're losing it. Once you hit 0, this is the thing that you need to do. You take your character sheet and you hand it to the GM. The GM now controls your character for any amount of time. That character is considered dead, cyber psycho. Odds are he is. After all, in 2020, he is going to be hunted by the C-Squad, C-SWAT, or, if you're in red forward, the almighty... This is bothering me. Why can't I think of the name? Trauma Team... Max Tech. Odds are they're going to be hunted by Max Tech. Unlike the skills we had before, Empathy has skills attached to the stat. First up, human perception. This is how well he can read people. He can kind of do it occasionally. It's not too high, and especially given his lack of read on Rebecca, to some extent Lucy and everyone around him, it's not that high. I had some stats floating around that I needed to fill up with skill points. That was one of them. Can't really do much with that, but he's got +1 to that. It's taking up space. Leadership at +3, once again quoting from the book. At +4, you can lead a team into battle and not get backshot. We can see that he clearly does get backshot at least once, though hence +3. Just below that level, he clearly has enough personality to get around his lacking skills in some areas, but not enough for Kiwi to tolerate his slow descent into cyberpsychosis. I don't blame Kiwi, but she probably could have done it in a better way, just, putting in her 2 weeks notice. She didn't need to betray everyone, but it's Night City, baby. Can you blame her? Seduction is at +2. Like a true protagonist, he has some people falling for him. So, once more needing to throw some points around, I just put them in there. It's not too high, but decent enough to catch the eye of both Rebecca and Lucy. Fast talk at +1. Seen while trying to distract Jimmy. He almost managed to do it. Too bad Maine can't really sneak to save his life, and he also had an eyeball in the back of his head, so it's got enough that he kind of knows what to do, but we all know how that went. Now, you might have noticed a little counter on the side of the screen. As labeled, these are the skill points being spent. A quick way to find these is take 40. That is what you get for your career skills. The career skills for solo will be listed right here. So, you also get some additional skills called pickup. These are what you get with your intelligence and reflexes. So, in David's case, we see his 8 intelligence, or 7 intelligence and 8 reflexes. That adds together to be 15. So that gives him a total of 55 to work with. Hence some of the skills I've seemingly picked up at random. If I missed any, they'll be added here, and again, will be listed with what they actually do with a short explanation as to that. So, stat points. These are a different matter. These are listed in the book for brackets, being shown on screen now. There are different gameplay levels to which characters can be. At this point, I've given him about 53. This is right between average and minor supporting character, being a bit on the low side for that, because I believe, and will firmly stand by this, well, David is unique. He isn't a major character by Night City standards. You can't hold a candle to some of the greats in Night City when you're someone like him. Sure, he'll be able to run street gangs and all that with ease, but he's not going too much higher. At least not properly, in my opinion. Feel free to fight me on that. I will stand by my thoughts, unless provided with sufficient evidence or the Pond himself comes down to yell at me. But with all this, he's not a clusterfuck like the character sheet V would have, and as somebody who was working on a similar video to this with V, Jesus Christ, man, V, Vincent, Valerie, Vasago, Valentina, they are a fucking clusterfuck when it comes to a character. So, now we get into the big part of what makes Cyberpunk special. Chrome. This is cyberware. It's everything from, important stuff like under armor for your skin, separated hearts so you don't get chest shot, to little minor stuff like the Mr. Stud implant. All night, every night. Just gonna go down the list. I have everything roughly set up and all that, so let's see how it goes with a little pointer. Cyber Eye, these are listed Chrome, price in terms of actual cash you spend, humanity cost, and the book they're from. So with this, we have Cyber Eyes. They're what it sounds like. It's eyes, the replacement cybernetic. He has these at the beginning of the story, 2 of them specifically. They're 500 eddies each, and 2d6 humanity. The humanity, I rolled that. I don't have the exact numbers lying around, but they did get rolled, so the numbers are accurate for the, 29d6 plus a d3 plus 7. So that's a large number that we're working with. This is from the main book. That won't be mentioned for each of them, but the cover of the book will pop up to show you, which book they are from. Now, we have additional things we can add to the eye, like the Times Square Plus. This just lets you have additional features with it, lets you do more. All in all, it is a useful piece of kit that pretty much all of my fellow edge running crew has. It's just mentioned in the wiki, and as such, I have tried my best to translate it. So, next up, we have the subdermal armor for the torso. This, again, this is something that lowers his attractiveness by 1, getting him to the 5 we mentioned. This adds 18 stopping power to any attacks that hit him, reducing 18 damage. Any damage that goes over that, he takes physical damage from that. It is a damage class of 20, again, upping the damage needed to go through with damage and attacking. Skin Weave. This is, again, more subdermal armor. This absorbs damage and attacks, making him hard to hit and bounce most light rounds. Cyber Arms. We see him get these from main. These are not an insane piece of kit, but again, very useful. They help boost his strength a little. He's got a micro missile launcher attached to him. That was the closest thing I could find to main's little machine gun bit. I'm going to put the sword away because I am pointing at nothing. So, all in all, that was just a little quick pickup. I'm sure I could have found something more unique if I looked through some of the interface magazines, but I'm having issues finding the interface magazines. I was lucky to be able to get a copy digitally of Interface 1. Cyber Legs, we see him use those specifically with the leg booster, increasing his leap. And I'll show the scene right now. That is a leg booster being used right there. Now we have Neural Wear. This is just a base Neural Wear set. It lets you attach additional Neural Wear, and again, is pretty standard in all characters that have any amount of chrome. Now, Chipware. This lets you slot shards, specifically skill shards, and anything of that nature that might be exceptionally useful in that area. Data Term Link. This just lets you attach to data terms. We see V uses it a lot with his wrist. Again, it's nothing too special, but it's a worthwhile piece of kit to have. Biomonitors. These are very important to have. In-game, specifically 2020, you can attach your trauma team policy to this, and should you fall below a certain amount, or, become in danger to your life, congratulations, trauma team will be coming to get you. I hope you paid that balance, because if not, you're going to be paying for a lot, including trauma team's fuel, bodily harm, munitions, their time, whole kit and caboodle. This specifically gives +2 to his resist torture and drugs, boosting it up to that 4 I mentioned earlier. Now, Muscle, Lace, and Bone Weave. This is one of the many things that boosts his body to high hell. I'd argue that he's able to more or less get that one body in the time he spends, training with the crew, but he's not going to be able to boost it 4 whole points. That's where Cyberware comes in. Lets you get big and strong without putting in too much effort. Just ignore the side effects, all things considered, because shit can go south. Now we're getting into the heavy hitters of his chrome. Kerenznikovs. This is a +3. This adds +3 to his initiative roll. So if we take a look at how we do initiative in 2020, we take reflexes at +8. That's already a fairly good number. Now he's a solo, which means that 6 I mentioned earlier, he now has a 14 to his reflexes. That's a really high number, because it's bonuses plus a d10. He's pretty much going first at this point. Now, you see, if we add in his +3 Kerenznikov, he has +17 to all initiative rolls, meaning the minimum he can roll is 18. And the max he can roll, without an exploding die, because that is a thing in 2020, he can roll 27. He is going first. The only person he is not beating is Adam Smasher. That's because Adam Smasher is fucking insane. And granted, he probably is going to be beat by someone like Morgan Blackhand, other famous solos like Shaitan, but we're not here to talk about the legends. I mentioned them in my 2020 video involving the Stranger Slide that Johnny Silverhand said if he want to, go check that out. Shameless plug. And now we get to one of the more interesting pieces of cyberware in the system. Linear frames and full body conversions. I say without a doubt David has one of these because he is disattaching his entire body, arms, fairly easily. We see that he is mostly machine at that point, and that's what linear frames do. They up your strength, a whole bunch of other stuff, but it's basically turning yourself into a robot. Here, for example, this is a Sigma linear frame. This gives you a strength of 12, again, hence the boosted numbers for his body stat. It's a pretty good thing. They are expensive as hell, this one being 6,000 eddies. So, if we consider that each gig is probably going to pay you about 500, I hope that you are ready to go on... You're going on 12 gigs just to afford that. And that is not including you having to pay for bullets, gas, food, housing, clothes, leisure activities, medical bills, any of that. 12 gigs of nothing but saving for that. You're going to be in the hole for a while if you buy that on credit. So, now we get cyberware hardening. This lets you resist a bit of EMP damage going for your cyberware. We can see that David has it. As far as I'm aware, the digital lines people have, that's part of cyberware hardening. It lets you absorb all of that. Think of it like a cage that keeps things off of your cyberware. But this is found in Interface Magazine, Volume 1, Issue 1. And I'm not sure if you guys have an easy way to find those, because I sure as hell didn't. It took me a while. Congratulations, Pondsmith. You have made me look at more of your stuff now than I have in quite a while. These, it takes up one customization slot and is 30% of the price of your Chrome. That calculation will be done at the end. I'm not going to go back and list every single 30% here. I apologize for that, but that's just not how I'm going to run. Now, we have the creme de la creme, the piece de resistance, the cheese on top of the pie, the Apogee Sandevistan. Coming in, this is ported directly from Cyberpunk Red, mind you. I mostly just took it one for one. Coming in at 250,000 euro dollars. So if we take that whole thing of, yeah, I'm going to save up my 500 eddies a gig, that is going to be, so 5 times 5 is 25, right? 50,000 gigs if you buy this outright. Most mercs don't make it past 100. So good fucking luck surviving that many. And it is 4d6 humanity. So at most, you are going to be receiving 24. That is 2 whole levels of your empathy lost due to Chrome absolutely eating that up. That's another thing that Humanity Lost does. It slowly degrades your empathy stat for every 10 gone. So, congratulations. That means that you now have lost 2.5 levels at most. You also could lose 4, who knows. But I'm judging with David, he probably suffered a massive loss of humanity considering his choice of installation. This again is from the Edge Runner's mission kit. It's for Cyberpunk Red, just ported it over. Didn't exactly feel like going through that whole thing. I have specific notes on this. The Chrome for all of this, with his 100 to start, it wiped him down to 6 humanity, and I was rolling low on most of my stuff. As we can see, the minimum humanity cost you could suffer was 45 points. Like, that is a lot of humanity lost for most characters to deal with. In fact, for your average human, with their 50 points, congratulations, you are now bordering on cyberpsychosis. But David? Oh no. The max he could have gotten was 274. 274. That is about 3 people. 2 like David that are absolutely cracked when it comes to dealing with cyberware, and 1 person who's a little above average. Every single one of those people would have gone absolutely batshit insane with that. And he got lucky. Fucking 94 humanity loss. Also, we have the Eurodollar cost down there. 360,880 Eurodollars. On screen, I'm going to put the calculation for how many gigs you would have to do to pay that. If I had to guess, it's a fucking lot. Like, a lot. So, all in all, David is built different. And considering the special rules for the apogee, he would have dropped to nil with each use, taking 2d6 humanity damage every single time he activates it. Going through the series, I will have put on here every single time he uses it as a number. I'll also put down the maximum and minimum that he would have lost due to that. Though, one thing I do like about Red, it has added some humanity balancing rules through major life events that can raise or lower your humanity. I'll say it roughly balances itself out. Though, for those of you, like I said, those of you who do want to know, that's the amount of times that the Sandy has been used in the series. That's a lot, considering the humanity loss that comes with. And now, we are going on to my favorite piece of the pie when it comes to the interlock system. It's Character Creator. You can create a life path by going through a bunch of charts and tables. Again, I will explain more when it comes to my how to create a character video for 2020. But that'll come out next month, hopefully. So let's quickly run through the character thing, and I'll pick the closest option for what David would be dealing with instead of rolling for them, because I think that'll work easier than me re-rolling constantly. So, getting David's character sheet out here. With Life Path, you can customize your appearance with the Life Path, or you can pick it out. So, for clothes, ended up going for 8, which is just normal clothes. He's got sweatpants, t-shirt, jacket. He's a boring gentleman when it comes to his fashion. For hair, 1, mohawk. It's the closest thing I could find to that, and I think it counts as one. For effects, this is like little pieces of you that make you who you are. You know, your sunglasses, your gloves, or him, number 6, his jewelry, specifically a necklace in the form of a crucifix along with a second gold chain. For 8, Hispanic American, I can't really change that. Gloria, Martinez, they speak a bit of Spanish to each other. Well, specifically Gloria speaks it to him, but I can't do much with that. And languages, he picks up Spanish and English for that. Now, for his motivations. You have traits, most valued person, things that you value most, specifically like concepts, how you feel about people, and your most valued possession. So for traits, I went with 4. He is moody, rash, and headstrong. Reason why I picked that, he's a fucking teenager. Teenagers are moody, rash, and headstrong. For the person he values the most in the series, that's going to be his lover. We see him move heaven and earth for Lucy. A bit literally in some cases. For his idea that he values most, that is number 10. His friends, the power of friendship, winning and getting crushed by, the literal demon of Night City. That's, he specifically values their goals above everything else. Get people to the moon, all of that. It's a rough idea, but it gets the idea across. How you feel about people? He seems to be a bit neutral, if, a little bit touchy considering some of them didn't really see any that felt too serious. And now his most valued possession, I ended up just picking 3, specifically his mother's jacket. Now you might be asking, wait, what's number 3 in the book? And I am glad that you asked. Looking through it, since I forgot to write it down, number 3 is a piece of clothing. I should have guessed that. And now for life events. You pick or roll a starting age, and with that, every single year that you pass after being 16 in this system, you roll on this table. It is one of my favorite things out there, and as such, I'm just gonna go down a quick path to see what it was. I ended up finding on the wiki, he started out 17 in the series, and he ends up dying at 18. So for 16, wasn't quite sure what to do, so I just put that as a nothing happened year. It seemed like it was boring enough for him. We don't hear of any major events like the spaghetti incident. But in the year 2075, we did 1, 6, and 5. The exact listing for those will appear on screen now, which resulted in his mother dying in the car wreck. Every good hero has to have some tragic start to their story. This specifically is when the campaign starts. That is Session 1, Season 1, Episode 1, Minute 1. Congratulations, welcome to the crew. Now, for 18, this is when the campaign is really kicking off in high gear. That's when he dies. So he has about a year of being burning bright, hot, fiery, and we all know what happens to the candle that burns twice as bright. Burns half as long. And I think he was burning about 5 times as bright because he didn't even make it to 20. Hell, he couldn't legally drink in U.S. states. What is the drinking age in Night City? That might be listed in Guide to Night City. I'll have to check that out later, but that's it for now. That is life events, motivations. He has 0 siblings. Now for family background. This one took a little bit of, adjusting, but I got 3 to start out for his background. His family was Corpotex, specifically REO Meat Wagon. Employee, EMT, they're a competitor to Trauma Team. They like to steal contracts from under Trauma Team and try to charge sky-high prices. They do a good enough job for what they're paid, I suppose. Next up, we have 10 followed by 2. And looking at the book, for 10, oh no, that means something happened to your parents. Go to something happened to your parents. So now, guess what? I rolled a 3. His parents were murdered. Well, that's a shame. His mom has died. Well, we don't know what's going on with his father, but he's out of the picture. Next up, we have family status. 6. Family tragedy. We all know where this is leading. This is start of campaign. Congratulations, you get a 6, which means your other parent is dead. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. Please go to the morgue to collect your parent instead. For childhood environment, he is at number 4, in a decaying once upscale neighborhood. Santo Domingo, well, not exactly high scale. It's the closest we're gonna get, because other options are defended corporate zone in the city center, heart of a combat zone, nomad pack. That's the best we're gonna get, because I don't think he was on the street with no adult supervision. It seemed like his parents really enjoyed him, and I keep tripping over my own feet. Siblings, he has none that we are aware of. We already did motivations, personality traits, and life events. So, now it's just a matter of getting the weapons. Those are easy enough. It's a heavy pistol. The exact model I chose is going to be put on screen. He's got a Kevlar jacket, which is his mother's. Whole list of weapons, but that's not what makes a character at the moment. Main thing, he's got the stats, he's got the skills, he's got the chrome, and by God, he is going to get out there in Night City and show him what for. Body type modifier is -3, so he takes -3 to all damage. Okay. So, going over everything as we see it, voila, we now need to figure out his reputation. And I put that as +4. Now, you might be asking, what the hell does a +4 reputation mean? And I say, did I not explain that at the proper time? Shame on me. Now for reputation, this is number 4. He spends most of his life at number 4. Stories are known all over the local area. According to the wiki, he's called the Sandy of his area. I don't know, I never hear that more often than not. Sandy of Los Santos. But he does get skyrocketed at the very end of his journey to 7 or 8. A news story or two has been told about your exploits. Your exploits regularly make headlines or scream sheets. An attack like that is going to make headlines. Granted, it got quickly crushed by Arasaka, but hey, what can you do about that? I keep stumbling over my words. So, I hope that you all found this video at least a little bit interesting and enlightening. I really enjoyed making it. I got to watch Edgerunners, like 3 times over because of it, and see a bunch of reactions just to spice up my way of consuming the story. But again, what did you think? Do you have a better idea of how to create the character? Tell me down below. If you're seeing this, I hope you enjoy. I'm playing through the Metro games right now. I'm currently watching Apothecary Diaries. I need to record that after this. And since I'm going to say it here, I'm streaming on Twitch. It's going to be linked down below. I will blow the both of us up if you do not leave. This is a threat. Go check that out. But you all know the drill. Stuff down below, do with it as you see fit. And yeah, see you later, chooms.